On my first day at school, the school's loudspeakers suddenly blared out a set of rules on repeat. Enrollment. Rule number 1, all students must enter the classroom building before 7:45 a.m. Otherwise, you will become lunch for the school cafeteria. Lunch made from students? What did that mean? Hearing the announcement, I couldn't help feeling a little confused. I looked at my watch. It was already 7:40 a.m. Filled with doubt, I slowly walked toward the classroom building. There were many other people around me who looked just as confused. By the time the bell rang, I had just stepped onto the stairs of the classroom building. I checked the time. It was exactly 7:45 a.m. I turned around and looked back. Everyone who hadn't entered the building exploded with a loud bang and burst apart. Pieces of clothing were torn into shreds and flew into the air. When I saw strange machines appearing from nowhere and beginning to collect the remains scattered on the ground, I instantly woke up from my lingering drowsiness. Cold sweat streamed down my back. It seemed this wasn't a joke. Those students had truly become the school's lunch. The moment I stepped into the hallway of the classroom building, the second announcement rang out. All students must freely choose a classroom before 8 a.m., take a seat, and begin class. Once class starts, anyone who has not entered a classroom will become lunch for the school cafeteria. 30 seconds before the class bell rings, the teacher will write the corresponding classroom rules on the blackboard. Please follow the rules strictly. Hearing these 3 rules being repeated over and over around me made my scalp tingle. Every classroom door was open. After taking a quick look inside several rooms, I chose a nearby classroom and sat down, waiting for the class bell to ring. There were a total of 30 desks and chairs in the classroom. On the podium stood a teacher wearing overalls, with hair completely covering their face. Even when the 1-minute countdown bell rang, many people were still observing. Then they all rushed into the classroom at once, quickly filling every seat. I looked at the clock on the wall. There were only 30 seconds left. At last, the teacher stood up, expressionless, picked up a piece of white chalk, and began writing on the board. The teacher wrote the rules very slowly, carefully drawing each stroke as neatly as printed text. It seemed as if the timing had been calculated down to the second. By the time the official class bell rang, the teacher had just finished writing the final stroke. Classroom rule: you must be seated 5 minutes before class begins. The moment the rule appeared, everyone became flustered. Most of us had entered the classroom at the very last minute. Perhaps it was because everyone had struggled until the very end in the face of death. A burly man suddenly stood up, slammed his fist onto the desk, and glared at everyone. Why should we listen to this teacher's rules? Let's fight him. Then he pulled out a small knife and charged at the teacher. The teacher showed no emotion, merely watching silently. Just as the man was about to reach the teacher, his body suddenly stiffened and became unable to move. The classroom speakers began to crackle. An additional student conduct rule has been added. Any student who attempts to attack or harm a teacher will become ingredients for the school cafeteria. After the announcement, a childish yet strangely mature voice came from the speakers. We like healthy and energetic ingredients like this. The moment the voice finished speaking, the burly man exploded. Not only him, every person in the classroom who had entered at the last minute exploded as well. Just like what had happened at 7:45 earlier, I was so terrified that my entire body went numb. Several of the surviving girls couldn't hold it in anymore and screamed before vomiting onto their desks. Before long, machines entered the classroom and began cleaning up the mess. Meanwhile, the teacher on the podium smiled. Today we can change the menu. We won't have to eat beans anymore. After that, he continued teaching. For the entire 40 minutes, the atmosphere in the classroom was nearly suffocating. Finally, the bell rang. The teacher immediately stopped the lesson. The classroom door automatically opened. A gust of wind blew in from the hallway. I was terrified, yet I couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. From what I had observed, it seemed that as long as you followed the rules written on the blackboard, nothing too serious would happen. Even if you didn't listen to the teacher's lecture for the entire class, there wouldn't be any problems. I hurried out of the classroom and took a deep breath of the fresh air outside. Just as I was about to head downstairs, another announcement echoed through the classroom building. Congratulations to those of you who are still alive and able to continue studying. Our school has a total of 3,000 students. After the first class period, only 800 students remain. There will be a 20-minute break between classes. Please do not waste your time. You may rest in the gymnasium, cafeteria, dormitories, and other areas to relax. This classroom building has 9 floors. Except for the cafeteria and recreation room on the 5th floor, the other 8 floors are all classrooms. Please do not attend 2 classes on the same floor. Otherwise, you will become lunch for the school cafeteria. After hearing this, I immediately started heading to the 2nd floor. After the first rule, only 800 people were left. That survival rate was truly terrifying. My heart began pounding. I had no idea what the rules in the other classrooms would be. After arriving on the 2nd floor, having learned my lesson from the previous class, I didn't dare enter at the last minute. Even though I knew that every classroom had its own rules, I couldn't shake off my lingering fear. This time, the teacher was a long-haired young man. I sat in the classroom and waited painfully for more than 10 minutes. Finally, the warning bell was about to ring. More and more people entered the classroom. In the end, more than 10 people had taken their seats. Then the teacher silently stood up, picked up a piece of chalk, and began writing on the blackboard. Just as the teacher was writing the rules, I heard hurried footsteps beside me. The person who came in was a young girl with an oval face and cheeks flushed red from running. She hurried toward the classroom and then stumbled. I reached out my hand and she managed to keep her balance and avoid falling. At that moment, the class bell rang. The teacher had just finished writing the last 2 words. The girl made it into the classroom in the final few seconds and gave me a slight smile. I felt relieved. Just as I was about to smile back at her, I saw the rules written on the blackboard. No facial expressions are allowed in this classroom. Accompanied by a horrifying scream, the girl beside me was instantly torn in half. Bright red blood splashed across my vision. I was terrified. I understood that although my muscles couldn't stop trembling, I absolutely could not show any expression of fear. So I tried my best to control my emotions and endured the entire 40 minutes. Finally, when I heard the familiar bell signaling the end of class, I let out a sigh of relief. Before I could fully recover, I looked around the entire classroom. Of the dozen or so people who had been sitting there at the beginning, only 2 or 3 remained, panting heavily. Not long afterward, the loudspeaker sounded once again. Congratulations to those of you who are still alive and able to continue studying. After the 2nd class period, only 220 students remain in our school. To be honest, you can already start looking forward to today's lunch. Of course, there will still be a 20-minute break between classes. Please don't waste it. You may relax and prepare yourselves for the next class. The 3rd class period will begin promptly at 10 a.m. Please do not attend 2 classes on the same floor. The cafeteria's meat storage is almost out of room. Just observing and enduring those 40 minutes had left me utterly exhausted. All I could do was drag myself up to the 3rd floor, randomly choose a classroom, sit down, close my eyes, and rest. It wasn't until the warning bell rang that I suddenly woke up. The moment I raised my head, I was surprised to find that there were nearly 20 people in the classroom. In a state of panic, most people wanted to gather together to feel safer. It was time. The teacher on the podium stood up right on schedule, took out a piece of chalk, and quickly wrote the rules for this classroom. Although he wrote in a hurry, the handwriting was still perfectly clear, like that of a precise machine. The rules for this classroom were: throughout the entire class, you must play a game of hot potato. After class begins, the teacher will hand a knife to the student sitting closest to the podium. The knife may be passed in any direction. When the teacher turns away, the students must continue passing the knife. Stopping for more than 3 seconds is forbidden. When the teacher turns back around, the person holding the knife must cut themselves within 3 seconds. Otherwise, they will be eliminated. When the class bell rang, the first student who received the knife didn't even wait 3 seconds before hurriedly tossing it to the person beside him. Because he threw it too hard, the knife rolled across the desk and cut the hand of the second student. Fortunately, the second student was braver. He quickly grabbed the spinning handle of the knife and passed it to the 3rd student before the 3 seconds were up. The 3rd student was clearly much calmer. After receiving the knife, he silently counted to 2, then hurriedly handed it to the 4th student, and so the knife continued to be passed around. At that point, everyone started copying this method, trying to count to at least 2 before passing the knife on. I was the 6th person to receive the knife. I intended to do the same thing they had done, to stay calm and count for 2 seconds. But something unexpected happened. The moment I received the knife, the teacher on the podium suddenly turned around. His deep, pitch-black eyes stared directly at me. I froze. I had never expected that the first person the teacher would see upon turning around would be me. My hands trembled uncontrollably, causing the knife to fall onto the desk. 3 seconds passed far too quickly. I frantically searched for the knife's handle. But just as I was falling into despair, a flash of pink suddenly passed before my eyes. The long-haired girl sitting next to me quickly grabbed the knife before I could and made a cut on my hand. The blade was much sharper than I had imagined. The pain was so intense that I nearly screamed. Seeing this, she slowly turned back around. "What are you still holding the knife for? Hurry and pass it on." I hurriedly passed the knife away. This time, I had come within a hair's breadth of being eliminated. As we watched the knife gradually being passed along, she gently said to me, "It seems I guessed right. You don't necessarily have to cut yourself. As long as the punished person bleeds, it counts." I couldn't help admiring her calmness and naturally felt grateful toward her. "Thank you for helping me. My name is Ling Ling. I'm Dao Dao. My nickname is Little Bean. Can you tell me which floors you attended classes on during the previous 2 periods?" "The first and second floors. What about you?" "I went to the 4th floor at first, then down to the 2nd floor, and finally to the 3rd floor. I have an idea and I want to find someone to test it with. I wonder if you're interested." Faced with someone who had just saved my life and remained so calm, it was hard for me to refuse her proposal. "Go ahead. The rules say that we can't attend 2 classes on the same floor. You remember that, right?" Based on my reasoning, there's a very high chance that the rules of each classroom don't change. To prevent us from surviving with just one set of rules, they force us to switch floors. So we can exchange information and tell each other what the classroom rules on the 4th floor and the 1st floor are, reducing the risk for both of us. The classroom closest to the stairs on the 1st floor had this rule. Everyone had to be seated 5 minutes before class began. Oh, there's a rule like that too? In the first class period, most people hesitated and no one gave any warning beforehand. A classroom like that is truly dangerous. Then she paused for a moment. I took my first class on the 4th floor, in the 3rd classroom on the left after going up the stairs. The rule was to stare at the teacher throughout the entire class and never look anywhere else. I hope that after 4 class periods, we'll still be able to see each other again. I hope so too. That classroom wasn't particularly dangerous to begin with. The punishment for breaking the rules was only getting a cut, so everyone managed to walk out alive. I felt relieved. After saying goodbye to Dao Dao, I headed to the 4th floor. After entering the 3rd classroom on the left, I sat down in a random seat. Suddenly, a crackling sound came from the loudspeaker. The 4th class period is about to begin. Please do not attend 2 class periods on the same floor. Everyone, please enter your classrooms immediately. There are currently 130 students remaining. At last, the teacher stood up and wrote the rules on the blackboard. But when the chalk stopped moving, I couldn't help but be stunned. What he had written had absolutely nothing to do with what Dao Dao had told me. It wasn't about staring at the teacher the entire class and being forbidden to look elsewhere. Instead, it was a game of blind man's bluff. But if Dao Dao had wanted to harm me, she could have done it earlier. Therefore, there was only one explanation. Our assumption had been wrong. Even in the same classroom, the rules were different every time. The rules for this classroom were, throughout the class, everyone must play blind man's bluff. After class begins, the teacher will be blindfolded. The students will have 5 minutes to hide inside the classroom. 5 minutes later, the blindfolded teacher would begin searching. Any student who was found would be eliminated. Please note, the playing area is limited to the classroom. Anyone who steps outside the classroom, boundaries will be eliminated. When the class bell rang, the teacher took a black handkerchief out of his pocket and blindfolded himself. I observed the classroom for a long time, and honestly couldn't find a good hiding spot anywhere. In the end, I used 2 desks to climb onto the air conditioner mounted above. The position was high, and logically speaking, it was the least likely place to be discovered. And even if I were found, I could quickly jump down and try to keep as much distance as possible, so it still counted as a decent hiding spot. After the game started, I stared toward the podium while covering my mouth so I wouldn't be discovered. Right beneath the podium, a fair-skinned boy was squatting. He was truly brave. In this world of rules, he actually believed that the most dangerous place was the safest place. He dared to hide right next to the teacher. But the teacher was no ordinary person. The first place he searched was the area around himself. In the end, the boy couldn't endure it any longer and quickly took a few steps, trying to change his hiding place. Unexpectedly, the teacher blocked his path. With no other choice, the boy stepped backward and accidentally crossed the classroom doorway. A shrill alarm sounded, and he exploded on the spot. A sinister smile appeared on the teacher's face. The corners of his mouth stretched so far that they almost reached across his entire face. It was as if he could see everything. Whether someone hid behind the water dispenser, under a desk, or inside a trash can, the teacher found them all. No one escaped. After only 2.5 minutes had passed, more than half of the class had already been eliminated. Only I, hiding on top of the air conditioner, and a girl clinging to the curtains remained. Meanwhile, the teacher had begun searching along the walls and windows. As I watched him get closer and closer to the girl, I couldn't help but feel anxious. If the teacher caught her, then I would be next. I looked around the classroom. There was nowhere left to hide. I couldn't help but look at the rules on the blackboard, wanting to calm down and think like Dao Dao. Suddenly, one sentence caught my attention. Immediately, I came up with a hypothesis. I looked at the trembling girl. She gritted her teeth, her entire body shaking. I quickly put my index finger to my lips, signaling for her not to make a sound. At the same time, I took a basketball out from behind me. As the teacher approached the girl, I forcefully threw the ball. The ball rolled rapidly across the floor and toward the classroom door. The teacher's hearing was extremely sharp. He immediately noticed the sound and rushed toward it. After realizing that it was only a basketball, the teacher angrily tore it into pieces. Because he was blindfolded, he didn't notice that he had leaned out through the doorway. A shrill alarm sounded, and the teacher also vanished into nothingness. The game ended early. Are you sure the teacher won't appear again? He's already ended up like that. What are you still worried about? Thank you for saving me at such a critical moment. How did you come up with this idea? Pay attention. The rule says that anyone who steps outside the boundaries of the classroom will be eliminated, but it never says that the teacher's excluded. The second student weighed 57 kilograms. What's going on? Why is it taking so long this time? Is this machine broken? Height, 5 feet 8 inches, within the normal range. Passed. After a period of testing, most of the more than 50 students from earlier had been eliminated. Only 3 people had passed the test and were standing off to one side. And by coincidence, we were the final 3. All right, next. Dao Dao stepped onto the scale without any hesitation. Weight, 103 kilograms. I broke into a sweat, but Dao Dao's expression didn't change at all. Before the teacher could say anything, she grabbed a chair, placed it under the height measuring device, and stood on it herself. Height, 2.2 meters. Passed. Next. I was stunned. The rules could be interpreted like this, but it made sense. The rules had never said that tools couldn't be used during the test. I let out a sigh of relief and stepped forward for the weight test. Weight, 30 kilograms. 30 kilograms? In that case, I would have to reduce my height to about 1 meter. So I stood behind the height measuring device and squatted down, lowering my height to roughly 1 meter. Height, 1.23 meters. Passed. Next. Using the same method, Ru Yan also passed the test. After the examination was over, only 6 people remained in the once crowded hall. At that moment, the loudspeaker crackled again. Next is the ball throwing test. This is the final examination. We hope all of you can pass. After the test is over, you will be free to move around. You only need to throw a ball into the hoop within 10 seconds. Please take the test in the same order as your weight and height examinations. The first person to throw the ball was a handsome male student. He picked up the basketball and pushed it forward. The basketball traced a perfect arc through the air. Just when everyone thought he had succeeded, the hoop suddenly shrank, becoming even smaller than the basketball itself. The basketball fell to the ground. Failed. Isn't there something wrong with it? Before he could finish speaking, his body exploded. The physical abilities of this year's students are a bit lacking. Next, the second student stepped forward, trembling. Just as he was about to throw the ball, his hand slipped and the ball dropped to the floor. As he bent down to pick it up, missed, failed. The next second, that student also exploded. The third student met the same fate as the first. The hoop suddenly shrank, causing him to miss the shot. Only 3 people remained. Could it be that no one can pass this test? Next, I found a loophole in the rules. Just watch me. Dao Dao stepped forward. She picked up a tennis ball and threw it toward the hoop. As expected, the hoop shrank again, but the tennis ball was smaller. As a result, she passed the test with ease. Successful shot. Passed. Next. As expected of Dao Dao, the rules only said to throw a ball. They never said it had to be a basketball. She had found another loophole in the rules, so Ru Yan and I also chose tennis balls. Using tennis balls, we took our shots. In the end, all 3 of us passed. The moment we passed, the school's loudspeaker sounded once again. Congratulations on passing our school's examinations with outstanding results. You have successfully enrolled. For the time being, you are free to move about. We hope that during your future studies, you will become valuable members of society. After the announcement ended, we looked at one another and smiled. Then we walked out of the gymnasium.